Welcome to Mad Men, a podcast dedicated to recapping and analyzing the AMC series once known as Mad Men. But this is from the perspective of three wildly different types of watchers. First, we have somebody watching the show for the very first time, and his name is Will Ashton. Hey, Will.
Hey, what's up?
And we also have someone re-watching the show for the first time since the series ended back in 2015. It's Michael Overholst. Mike.
It's actually Michelle.
And then there is
episode.
The non-French person, me, John Negroni, who I feel like I could have 4 cats before I die at this point. I think I can. Boys, we are here to talk about Season 5, Episode 7, at the Codfish Ball. This episode was directed by Michael Uppendahl, longtime director of the show, and it was written by Jonathan Igla. And it was really cool because in the commentary, Jonathan Igla was with Matthew Weiner for one of them. And so we got to hear him talk about his whole process with the show. He co-wrote Tomorrowland. I think he's been in the writer's room a bit, but he doesn't have a ton of credits throughout the series so far. But yeah, guys, this episode aired, let's see here, April 29th, 2012. So it has been 13 years plus. And the ratings for this episode were the first kind of like big drop in season 5. Up until this point, it had already been dropping a little bit. So between Signal 30 and Faraway Places, it had dipped a little bit from Mystery Date, but then it dropped like a bunch to this one. So we're kind of in the middle of the season though. Will, you're our first time watcher, and I have to reference the fact that you were texting Mike and me on the side, and it seemed like there was some distress on your end.
I mean, things were looking kind of rocky at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah.
You know, we start with Glenn, who, you know, when in the earlier seasons, I feel like I had no issue with Glenn. He was a little weird, but he was interesting. And I don't know what happened between, like, I don't know if it was like season 2 or 3 or whatever. Weiner Jr., I feel like whatever his name is, the son of Matthew Weiner, I feel like he just forgot how to act. And every scene with him since has been painful.
You really think so? Because I do like the way he delivers that line. He was like, I'm talking to your mom so we can ball. Like, there's something about that line where I'm like, yeah. I
mean, I know he's supposed to be a weird little freak, but like every line delivery from him just feels off in the wrong way. Like, I don't feel like any line he says feels like something a normal person, or rather a human person, would be saying. It's just like, I just feel like it's, I don't know, comfortable in the wrong ways whenever he's on.
It's the Boyhood effect. It's just, you unfortunately picked a child actor who, as they grew with the show, never got good at acting. It's also important.
They can't all be Kieran Shipka, Will. Sheesh.
It is important for you to know, Will, that his name is Martin Holden Weiner. That Matthew Weiner was like, who was my kid going to be like? Holden Caulfield, and named his son after that, which I think just fits a billion things about that man.
Yeah, and I think Matthew Weiner has said before that the Glenn character sometimes is his surrogate into the show because he was like around that age when all this stuff was happening. So there is a little bit of like Glenn being kind of creepy, Matthew Weiner being kind of creepy. We don't have to dig into all that. But yeah, Will, so that was the first part of the episode though. Did you like this episode overall though?
Overall, yeah. I mean, I feel like this has been my favorite season to date of the ones we watch. I just feel like the episodes have been really... it's... I would say of the episodes so far, this might be the weakest one, but I think it's still a good, solid episode. And I think once you get past the Glenness of it all, it is a really solid, interesting, thoughtful episode. And I think it's well layered. I think there's a lot of interesting thematic stuff that's happening throughout. And I really like learning more about Megan's life and like kind of what makes her tick and just kind of figuring out who she is beyond the fantasy that Dawn wants to drape her up to be, as it were.
Drape?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a really intriguing episode in its own right. And I think the more it goes along, the better it gets until we get back to Glenn, and then it kind of falls apart. But no, I'm just kidding.
Bookends it. Yeah. I'll agree. I think, and when you listen to the commentary, you really get a great impression of how much thinking they really put into Megan's character, even like last season, and how it pays off now. Like all the little details, all the little quirks behind her parents. I think that you could just sort of tell they really did their work in that regard. Now, Mike, rewatching the show, and again, you haven't seen it since I want to say like early 2010s, right? Was there much in this episode that you remembered, or is this because Will's kind of saying so far it's the weakest for him? But did this one did you memory hole it, or were you like, oh, I remember this episode perfectly?
I definitely remember this episode. In fact, when you said that this was like where ratings dropped, and honestly hearing Will say it wasn't his favorite, like it's pretty surprising to me. Like this is an episode that I genuinely enjoy. I enjoyed it on a rewatch. And I think the more I thought about it, it's like I think I really recognize like the Sally experience in this episode. I think around her age, I had like a really strong feeling, a memory of like my relationship with my dad changing as I got older and like becoming this like more like mature relationship and talking about things that older kids would talk about or something like that. So I don't know. I think that jarring moment with Sally at the end of like getting like wanting to be an adult, but then getting her first glimpse at like unadulterated adulthood and it being like, oh no, I'm not ready for this. Like, I think that's a feeling I felt when I was a child. And so this episode's always like kind of stuck in my brain because of that. So maybe I give it more credit than I should, but genuinely, I really do and did like this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Beans pitch always really stuck out to me because like when I was first watching this, it was while I was studying advertising, and I remember this was the pitch, right? That like they had been building up to it and building up to it. And I remember thinking like, how are they going to be able to like match the buildup? They're either going to lose the Heinz account or they're going to find some hit pitch that's better than everything we've seen so far. And I was like, oh yeah, that's actually a pretty good ad for Beans, but that's like the kind of tragedy of this episode, right? I think this is like one thing that kind of stuck out to me a little bit more than it usually does because rewatching this so many times, some of the Sally stuff really stuck out to me more this time than usual. The Shirley Temple thing where she says that are you finished with this? And she says, yeah. And like just that capping off of like, oh, maybe I am growing up too fast. And so many of the little things between Megan and like her dad were things that I just remember like first watching it and even rewatching it and be like, these parents are so dysfunctional, blah, blah, blah. Roger's getting a blowjob. But I don't know. There is more complexity there than I think I gave credit. Now, Will, we got to meet Megan's parents. And one of them, you are a fan of the actress, I want to say.
And it was just nice to see her. I mean, I'm not as
Okay, my bad.
No. I mean,
no, you get so defensive. What happened between you two?
No. I just wanted to clarify that like I am not as well versed in her filmography. I knew her initially. Get the wrong impression. I was like, I know this isn't Juliette Binoche, but it looks a lot like her. And I remember I was looking it up and I was like, oh yeah, she's the woman from like Legends of the Fall and I think she was in Sabrina and
if you can see her and know what her name is, I gotta tell you, you are a fan of her. That is
she's a British actress who
that's not a name that comes to people's minds.
Sure, yeah. She's not a household name, I'm sure. No, it was like one of those things where I mean, the name didn't come to me initially. I had to look it up, I'll admit. Yeah, I was just kind of taken aback because I was like, oh, okay. I just wasn't expecting her in this show. But it wasn't like me fangirling out when I see like Ray Wise. And I'm like, that's Ray Wise. Hey, I'm so excited because I remember he was in the show before. And I was like, when's he coming back? Because you don't just bring in Ray Wise.
They gave him a great, like Ken's father-in-law. So yeah, he's coming back and back, hopefully. Yeah, Julia Ormond, she is a British actress and doesn't know any French, but like, so I think she does a great job though of like playing this sort of French person who moved to Canada, like that whole thing. I think is really, really convincing. I did look up like what she's been up to like lately, because honestly, I want to say like I haven't seen her in anything since like maybe the early 2000s. But she was in like one of those Walking Dead shows as like one of the main villains. I never saw it, but it was The Walking Dead World Beyond. Honestly, I hear it's like every couple of weeks I hear there's like a Walking Dead spinoff that I had never heard of before, to be totally fair. But yeah, Julia Ormond. There's a fun little trivia where she is doing the bow tie on Roger, and Weiner talks about how they didn't have to teach her to do that because one of her first jobs was actually working at like one of those old kind of like shops or whatever, and she would do that all day, like tying bow ties. And so they didn't have to do like an insert, for that scene. She just got to do it herself. It's like nice little. That's pretty cool. But yeah, Will, the parents. You did your opinions on Megan's family kind of coming into the fray here.
Yeah, we got to meet the parents.
Yeah, Ronald Gutman is the father.
And I have to say, I am disappointed that Megan's French socialist dad didn't do I've got the nipples done. Can you milk me?
It's pretty good.
I
great
had the
French accent.
Yeah. I was really tempted to just say the actual line.
That's another thing too, by the way, real quick, that the dynamic between him and Don in this episode gets more and more interesting the more and more you watch it. There's a lot of subtle like acting happening there with their faces.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great performance that he gives in this episode. I mean, I think a lot of actors probably would have overplayed those notes and like kind of made it a little too obvious and stuff, but I like the nuance of it, and I like that you can kind of read it but doesn't feel overplayed, and you can understand Don's sort of confusion, not only in terms of the like cultural differences, but like he's just kind of an odd sort of personality, and he's just not usually someone like him who is good at reading people is just kind of lost at sea here. And I love this concept of him, even like from the first time they come into the house or apartment or whatever, like he just feels fully like a stranger in his own house in a way that we're just not really used to seeing from Don. And yeah, it's just it's kind of like dry funny throughout, just to kind of like see how like Dawn just feels so adrift and just like doesn't have any sort of like control over the house, like even down to Bobby like messing up the carpet, and Dawn just kind of having to be like, well, okay, you gotta deal with that, I guess.
Isn't it great though? I mean, it is like the three-headed hydra of all the things Don hates, like a foreigner, a communist, and the father of the woman he's banging.
His own kids. One thing that I didn't pick up until I did pick this up like later, but the first time watching, I didn't notice like the fish. Like literally there's a line where Don says like, oh yeah, Sally doesn't like fish. I was like, oh, don't worry, we made her spaghetti. And then later on, when like Sally's trying to be more adult, you see her trying to eat a fish. And like I just totally like flew over my head the first time I watched it. But nice little details like that.
Have you guys seen the spaghetti supercut of Megan?
No, I want to see it.
Yeah,
I'm sold just on the title. You have to watch the whole show first.
You can't watch it yet. I'll send it to John though. But there's just a supercut of just every time Megan's like, I made spaghetti. Or we should make spaghetti.
I bet you could do it as like a horror movie. So Mike, I wanted to ask you or go back to the Megan stuff too. And I know there's other stuff in this episode, like with Peggy, but with the Megan stuff and kind of what happens with her character and like the Heinz pitch and all of that. Was there a moment like when you were first watching the show, like were you thinking like, oh, okay, like did you have an idea of like what they were going to do with this character? Because I know now you have the full context, so we can't share with Will. But how was that for you?
Yeah, I don't know how I can talk about her becoming the Wolverine without spoiling it to Will. No, honestly, it is hard to imagine. Like, I don't think I did. I know I always liked Megan. I liked Megan when I first went through the show because I just liked her like independence, and she felt different from a typical Dawn girl, and like in regards to like she didn't get as bothered by all like the extremes of Dawn. Like she finds out about Dick Whitman, is like whatever. Like the first time they have sex, she's like, whatever, I'm your secretary. I can go back to being your secretary. I don't know. There's always, but that's like always what I thought about her. And so now I like that it's like as an audience, you're also being reminded like, oh, you are also your own person with your own dreams and not just this person for Dawn, for our viewing pleasures, for Dawn's pleasure. Like you are also probably, I lose sight of how young she really is or being portrayed in the show. Like there's still so much life ahead of her to capture these things.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like her, love for Dawn, right? And the dynamic she has with her dad. Do you think that explains why she is the way she is with Dawn based on like her relationship with her dad? Her dad is this guy who's this like tenured professor who also kind of came from nothing, kind of has some problematic stuff going on with like the socialism. And then also, you know, I just say problematic for the time. Will Ashton's getting a little bit like, excuse me, problematic.
I just didn't realize.
For Zora and Donnie 3 times if I could.
Sure. Let the listeners know that Will is wearing a red shirt.
Boy, put me on blast. Yeah, I just didn't realize that John was trying to transition us to the InfoWars network with this podcast.
We got to make money somehow, guys. Time to sell out.
But yeah, no, questions. I probably, to answer your question, John, it probably is the reason that she likes him. But it's also probably that and the fact that he is successful and has money. I think it's like the perfect vibe of you remind me of my dad, but also the opposite of my dad.
Well, Don's more successful than her dad, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like that's why she likes Don. It's like she sees the reasons that her mom resents her dad, and so it's like the parts of her dad she likes, the parts of her dad that her mom resents being the opposite, and it's like, boom, let's have babies.
Will look skeptical though. Will, do you have a different take?
No, I just was thinking about like how he is sort of like the failed version of Don in the sense of like Don, for the most part, was able to have all these sort of successful affairs and kind of keep his family life and affair life separate. And Megan's dad's like the complete opposite, where it's just like every time he seems to have some sort of like affair or would-be affair with his students or, whomever, his wife is like aware and like holds it against him. It just seems like he, in general, just doesn't really seem like he's made peace with the fact that, he has all these sort of lofty ideas and high opinions of himself, but he hasn't really done much to earn that outside of maybe having like a tenured position at a college. I think he just sort of resents, like you said, Mike, Don for being this sort of, embodiment of everything he hates, even though technically he should be liking Don because he is a self-made man who, is kind of took himself from nothing and actually applied himself and kind of made something for himself. But he also made himself into everything that Megan's dad seems to dislike in people. So
yeah, because he's like a capitalist, like total capitalism story, and which is what makes the Canadian versus American thing so interesting. But I do like how her mom, right, Marie, actually like kind of calls it out as like his brain and his eyes are like disagreeing with each other. So like clearly he has this kind of like affection for the trappings and he's like impressed, but like intellectually he's like, this is wrong. And I think that just basic dynamic is kind of what makes his character come alive for me, because then he's not like a caricature, like I guess you were saying before. Like he could have overplayed that in the performance, but he doesn't. I think the writing helps out a lot too. Also, I just love where he's just like, you will not be happy until I'm dead, like the whole thing. That was just such a dramatic. Can I come to the ball? I really like this episode. Like, I think this is one of those quintessential types of Mad Men episodes where I think the show is usually so good at taking these kind of like ordinary family dynamics that could happen in any era and then just kind of like filtering them through 60s commentary, right? And you have like it's of its time, but it's still kind of timeless at the same time. So, Sally experiencing kind of this like traumatic exposure to adult sexuality in a way she hasn't before on the show, which, for the record, I was curious about this. Kieran and Shipka, according to Weiner, the way they shoot it, you can kind of tell, but like she didn't actually like see that on the screen.
I mean, I think that would be illegal to show that.
Well, here's the other thing.
Weiner would not care, brother.
Well, here's the other thing, though. I haven't listened to it yet, but there's another commentary that she's on, and they watched the episodes. So, is it different if she's watching it on the show versus like if it's in person?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think legally you can't have a minor. I don't know. I mean, if it's fake, I guess.
It's not actually happening.
I know. So maybe I don't know, but like, I do have to imagine there are some sort of
yes.
child actor laws in place here. I don't know the specifics, and I don't know why I would, but
good cover.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I kind of assume that they did some sort of cut or stand in or something to not expose her to that ordeal. I was surprised. I mean, not that they show anything, but I don't know, like even what they show, I feel like is kind of surprising for cable television. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess just the fact that it's the thrusting isn't that. I guess like with a regular sex scene, you just kind of just see the thrusting, but like I guess just maybe because you're not used to seeing blowjob scenes on cable television, it felt more surprising and taboo to me at least.
At least it didn't, yeah, maybe they did it like the Naked Gun movie, where just give it all the plausible deniability. I also, okay, I want to know your criticisms because I only have one real criticism against this episode. A couple of minor, like, I don't know if I love that. But did anybody have like a straight up, I did not like this? It looks like Mike is thinking.
Yeah, I definitely do. Abe is still breathing.
Abe is terrible in this episode.
Abe is terrible always, brother. I hate Abe. I do not like Abe. He's so bad.
Do you agree, Will? Are you with Mike on the Abe train at this point?
I feel like I'm fairly neutral to Abe. I don't really have any strong positive or negative feelings towards this man.
You sound like Peggy.
Sure.
Yeah, you're not Peggy's mom like Mike is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
he's living in sin.
The funniest thing, or the only real memorable thing with Abe in this episode to me is just like Peggy's mom's reaction when she's like, "Ham's my favorite food," and she was like, "Oh, really?" Just
I think there's like the Jewish.
I know, but that's what I mean.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were.
I just thought it was funny that she was just like so like anti-Semitic to him, like to his face, like not, and also like the whole thing where she like isn't trying to make a big deal, but she's like leaning back to like make sure he takes her jacket, and he's like, "Oh, thank you." Peggy's mom just sucks in this episode, but she's at least funny.
Yeah, I love her. I love the actor. I love that she kind of comes back into the show. They were talking about that a little bit in the commentary too, where Weiner said that of all the people that he says like get recognized from the show, she's one of those people that like people say like, I know this person, like her personality, her like cross, like all that stuff is like it's just like very Brooklyn, very New York in that sense. And I think she just does a great job whenever she comes back in. Did you have a criticism, Will? Because it seemed like you were the the warmest on this episode compared to us. Was there anything though that you were kind of like, yeah, you know what, that doesn't quite work?
I was the warmest.
Is it not warmest, coolest? Is that what it is?
Like, I don't know. I mean,
you're not as hot on the episode as we are.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like it. I just feel like it doesn't hit as hard as the last few, which I think says more about the other episodes of the season than this one per se. But
it's hard to compete with Roger doing LSD, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's not quite as memorable as maybe some of the other episodes we've seen. There's no fighting in the office. There's no, like you said, LSD trips. There's no Megan doing a song and dance number. But yeah, I mean, it is, I think, like I said, a thoughtful and thematically rich episode throughout. It's just kind of fun to spend some time with these kooky French in-laws. I definitely hope that they become a more recurrent part of the show moving forward, but I have no idea if that is the case or not. I would guess so, given the sort of awkwardness that now is in place with Roger. And I will say, I mean, I do love a lot of the stuff that's going on with Roger in this episode. I think it's really funny that he's like constantly bringing up the LSD trip in a way that like makes him feel like makes him feel like he's some sort of like spiritually enlightened person, but like all of his insights are just like basic human insights. Like everyone's just kind of just like, okay, you just learned how to be a human being. Congrats.
Mona gets that great line. It's well quoted, It's like, I thought you left me because I was too old, but it was because you had gotten old.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of fascinating stuff with the economy of Roger in the sense of like he is a sort of like child that never grew up. Megan's mom even I think points that out at one point.
There's a little boy in you.
And I think that's how he's able to connect with Sally in such a like endearing sort of way, because there's the dynamic between Sally and Roger very, very easily could have been this unsettling, creepy thing. But there is something pretty endearing and kind of sweet about it, because Roger is just playing it like a fun kind of uncle and just like
effortless.
Yeah, it's very casual, very sincere in a way that, it's reflexive for him. And I think that, it does have this sort of genuine spontaneity to it that's really fun and sincere, like I said. But then he has this sort of like really raunchy, side quest with.
Well, some would say that was his main mission.
Sure.
Like, once she tied the bow tie on him, that was that. And he was like, all right, how am I going to make this happen? The kid.
Yeah, I mean, Megan's mom is not subtle about her thirsting for Roger. I feel like, as soon as Roger came into the apartment, she's like instantly like moaning. And then the dad's just like, Sacre bleu.
Yeah, I mean, her name wasn't Mona before she met Roger.
Right, exactly, yeah. He's like, what's up with this guy?
Sacre bleu, my never.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my criticism, very simple. I don't understand. There's a whole moment where Don learns that like his whole principled stand against the tobacco industry, right? Like it gets him the award and he thinks, he seems to be very like, oh, cool, I got it, whatever. But then, the Dow Chemical guy is like, oh yeah, but these guys will never work with you because of blah, blah, blah. Then there's this moment where like Don, it looks like his bubble is burst and he's like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, like this has been established. Like they literally talked about this in like the last season. Like this is what what's his face Bert was talking about. Like why Don acts like it's some kind of surprise. I think it doesn't make sense to me.
Go ahead, Will.
I was just gonna say I feel like Don is very explicitly somebody who thinks he can kind of overcome these sort of professional obstacles in a way that like
because why would that change here?
Well, because it's who told him. It's because of it being the specific person being like, but no one's going to work with you. Like, that's the first person that Don has listened to. I'd be like,
who? I wouldn't listen to him. What is he?
We're going to listen to Bert? Don's not going to listen to Bert. Don doesn't listen to anybody. It's like.
Don's not going to listen to a client.
But he's not a client, right? It's like, I think it's different. I think it's because of his position, who he is. I think Don does respect him because of the success he's had in his career. Like, that's different than a client. Like, it wasn't the Heinz guy. He wouldn't listen to him.
Well, and I also think, this kind of goes back to the last season when they had that award thing and they were like sort of night and day with how they were. Like when Don was working for the original company, when he wasn't, one of the co-founders, I feel like he was sort of blasé and he didn't really care all that much. But now that he has sort of a personal investment in these things, he takes it more sincerely. I think he feels like it's more of an honor. And so I think he's a little punch drunk in the moment, as well as probably actually drunk. And I think it might have wounded him a little bit more than it would in a maybe more professional setting, or maybe even a more professionally minded situation, because he's like, at this point where he's being honored, everyone acts like, he's done this great thing. Don's always the sort of self-made man who's reinventing himself. So to get this sort of like unexpected brick wall that's like hitting him like Wile E. Coyote, I feel like it makes sense to me.
I appreciate y'all have a great take on it. To me, it feels kind of forced. I'll have to think about it more though. I don't know. It just something about it. It just doesn't jive with. Like to me, it feels forced because it feels like Weiner just wanted everybody to go to that table looking super disappointed about something, and I think he had to find something for Don. And this to me is what felt out of place. I will say though,
I mean,
it just dawned on me. I think Don has won an award in every season of the show so far. Because the first season,
it's called an Emmy, dude.
Yeah. Well, no, that would be Bryan Cranston. I feel like they didn't win that many
they didn't.
Emmys during the run. I was going to say that shot of them at the table could very well just be them at the Emmys, empty-handed.
That's the thing, right? Well, because he wins this award this season. Last season, he won the Clio. Third season, he wins the award. It's like right after Betty finds out that he's Dick Whitman. And she has to like clap and whatever. I don't remember if he won anything in the second season. That's one I'm blanking. If
World's Best Dad.
There you go. First season, he won that award that got him in the newspaper, and that's how Adam finds him. So I think every season, Don's getting awards every day, every which way.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say the person I don't believe is sad at the table is Roger. I think he should have a big old smile on his face. He should be like. What were those commercials with the guy that was like always smiling? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't think
it was like for an erection pill. It's like, what was it? I always remember, what was that guy? I'm going to look it up while you guys talk about whatever.
Okay.
I'm trying to Google this award thing because it's interesting, but it's basically impossible to Google this without Google being like, do you want to see what John Hamm won? John Hamm Awards? Mad Men Awards? List of Emmy Mad Men Awards?
I could see him. Sure.
Smiling Bob from Design or whatever that thing was. None of this is ringing a bell.
No?
All right.
Sorry. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I can't yes and you this time.
Sure. That's fine.
I mean, I'm looking at it. It means nothing to me.
While you're doing that, I want to go back to the Heinz pitch again. One of the reasons I like the Heinz pitch a lot is because, and they talk about it in the commentary, they decided to do it in this way where it's not just Don being Don and they're in control. And you guys already kind of mentioned the whole, like in this episode, Don is very like on the back foot throughout this. Like a lot of stuff just like happening to him and he's sort of befuddled throughout. And Megan is the one who kind of comes through. It's not just her who comes up with the pitch and figures out like, you know, basically saves the day, right? Because they were going to do something called a human cannonball, and there's no way that was going to win him over at that dinner, right? Which, by the way, human cannonball, apparently they said that was one of the pitches in the writer's room that they were like kind of putting up there as like that Peggy would pitch. And so they got to reference it at least. But anyway, I think it's really interesting because it demonstrates not just, well, obviously not just Don's, but like Megan is really good at this, like the ability to adapt, right? She was able to read the situation, get him into it, sharing the credit between like Don shares the credit, like he's totally magnanimous in this. Peggy kind of shows that same sort of thing. Like she doesn't show a lot of pettiness. She kind of makes it about her. She has that whole thing of she's like, this is good for me. And like Megan's like, okay, message received. Like it's that part's a little weird. So yeah, I just think it's like it's a nice little, it's unique. It's like a different kind of way that they get the pitch done that makes it more memorable. I know for Will it's not as memorable, but I mean, what are you gonna do?
I mean, I do like that Megan unknowingly or knowingly is taking directly from the Dawn sort of playbook, which is like Dawn would normally be the type person that takes from like his real life.
Yeah.
As he did at the end of season 1 and kind of apply it to be this sort of like more general, you know, broad thing, but has a sort of personal edge that makes it feel more authentic or whatever. But yeah,
and why I mean, hasn't he? Because he's on his love moon,
right?
You know, his honeymoon, as Bert was saying.
Yeah. And I do have to say, I think overall it's a solid pitch, but I do have one note that I think would have made it great. And that is, you know,
they see Megan have a dog in well, of course, the commercial too.
Well, I mean, eventually,
Casting has found the perfect dog that's going to go through all of the ages.
Well, I mean, how do you think the Duke pitch came along? That was, you know, all Chauncey. He's the one that came up with that. It's like, why don't we put me in here a little bit and then like see what happens?
Chauncey, you're always, you know, with these pitches using your personal life to sell these ideas.
Yeah. My pitch would have been, you know, like Megan and later Dawn were talking about. You see, you know, throughout the ages, the one thing that connects is that everyone has beans. And, you know, we see, you know, whatever, the Victorian era, the Middle Ages, you know, present day, future, what have you. But I think what would have really made this spark is that we kind of cut to each time and the kid's eyes go really wide. And he just lets out a huge fart and you cut through all the timelines and the fart is happening through all of them. And it says, Heinz beans, some things never change.
Sold.
That's a good, at what year in history would a fart in a commercial be allowed and not be like the most controversial thing?
2000.
Interesting. I feel like his SNL probably helped a lot.
No, Wayne's World.
Well, yeah, when was Martin Short his most popular? When was all like the Jiminy 1980s happening?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Actually, talking about, I realized the crescendo. I think what really made the commercial pop is that you hear the fart throughout, but when you get to the future, it's silent because it's space. So it's just, you know, like this instant. Yeah.
Or it's like through the radio. But I do think when it comes to Megan, there's something interesting about how she like downplays her success with the pitch, right? Where she's kind of like, well, yeah, it's just like beginner's luck. And you see it. You see that she's like so cynical about this whole advertising thing, down to like Peggy literally saying right to her. And I'm a little bit like, it's a little on the nose where she's like, this is as good as this job ever gets. And it's like, whoa, okay. Like, that's like a really rough thing to say, like to somebody when they've had a big success. It's like, it never gets better than this. Like, the heck?
Yeah, but Peggy's Don Jr. She believes that. Like,
Yeah.
To Peggy, like, it doesn't get better than that, and that's okay because that high of that going well is like everything.
It's such a good lesson though, because like clearly advertising doesn't provide the personal fulfillment that she's after. And like that's like one of those main family dynamics that the show is able to channel so well. Because like so many people experience this in real life of like doing some job, doing the safe thing, or doing something because they can kind of skip to the end, skip to the success, and it doesn't fulfill them. It doesn't actually bring them personal joy. And clearly that's the case with Megan. Will, what's your prediction? Do you think that she's going to keep on working in advertising?
Well, I don't imagine that things are necessarily going to work out for Dawn and Megan in the long run. And because they have made their work life and professional life so intertwined, I can't imagine Megan's going to stay into the advertising game. Though I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Let's make another prediction and see if you're right. Do you think Megan lasts through season 5?
You know what? She seems to be a fan favorite. I think everyone really enjoyed her song and dance and her witticisms and all that jazz. So I'm going to say some way or another, we're going to keep on keeping up with that Megan.
Okay. What about season 6?
Sure.
What about season 7?
Yeah, probably not. I don't know.
This is literally just like an Office cold open bit where Jim asks Dwight if he could see something happening, and he just keeps going in increments of 1. And Dwight's like, I could see it.
Yeah.
Season 8. We'll get to season 8 eventually. We didn't talk about the Peggy stuff too much, except Mike, of course, hates Abe. There is the whole thing of like moving in together in the 60s was pretty like, not unheard of, obviously, but definitely like uncommon, even in New York. But yeah, what did you guys make? I mean, Mike, you specifically, because I think the way that Peggy's responding here, I feel like you're at a point in your career where you're at like that same kind of age where like you're older than like the juniors, but then you experience like them having success and then you having to navigate like, okay, how do I show this person I'm actually proud of them and I'm not like jealous of them? Have you ever had to go through that before? You're like, no, everyone knows I'm just jealous of them all the time. They're so handsome.
Exactly, John. Also, there's no one younger than me at my company who's more successful than me. I'm really good at my job.
Wow. Wait, has that ever been the case then? Like at any of your jobs?
No, it's definitely happened.
I was gonna say you're the big boss. Like, come on.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think it's like this thing of like just a mentality of. I think when you're young, you're so concerned about how do I get ahead, how do I be better, like me, 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 and then you get older, and it's still like about you, and you still care about like career progression, but you do have to recognize that other people are doing that. And it's okay. And when it's not a threat to you, that's like when you've like, I think fully arrived in like a maturity in your career. But I think for Peggy too, it's like maybe similar to like, this is as good as it gets. Like for Peggy, like, does she actually believe that there's more to this in life? Like, is she going to go anywhere higher as like a woman in advertising? Does she like truly believe that? And if no, then where are these personal successes in her life? And how can she like get there fully like like everybody else? And I think Peggy's just so trapped in the middle of she's the odd man out at work because she's good at her job, but is still a woman, and there's still going to be stigma around that. But then also like she's in this weird place in a relationship where she's with a guy who is serious about her, but not serious enough to put a ring on her finger, but serious enough to want to move in. And it's just all confusing, and she has to just be happy with all of it.
Mike, I have to clarify. You were talking about how you were saying this is as good as it gets. No, this is Mad Men. As Good as It Gets is a film from James L. Brooks with Jack Nicholson, Helen Hunt, Greg Kinnear, and Cuba Gooding Jr.
This isn't As Good as It Gets, man.
I wish we could talk about As Good as It Gets.
As Good as It Gets.
I joined the wrong podcast.
I mean, the big thing about that. The big thing about that movie,
A Few Good Men.
The thing about that is it is good. But is it as good as it gets? I don't know. I mean, that's where the podcast goes.
I think with Peggy, I think she's very of the moment. I think that like part of like the trauma of like losing her dad, I think she understands that she doesn't have like her whole life to like, I don't think she's constantly looking at like what's ahead. I think most of the time her fulfillment comes from like being in that room with those guys and kind of coming up with ideas and going through these skirmishes like one at a time. And I think like because like if you just kind of chart her successes, a lot of the time she just works really hard because she wants to get to that place, but it doesn't seem to like consume her. Like that's one of the things that does seem to differentiate her from Dawn to some extent, is it doesn't seem like she feels like she has to have this amazing pitch. If she's just kind of like on that journey and she's with her friends eating like Chinese food and stuff, she just seems genuinely kind of happy. And like Abe is this person who like, yeah, maybe they're not going to get married, but she likes being with him. He meets her needs. And I think it's kind of genuine. I think like the whole thing where she talks to Joan about it, and Joan, I think, is the reason why she even feels confident enough to talk to her mom about it, because she's like, oh, maybe it'll go well. Went well with Joan, which, all right, Peggy. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's just kind of my read on the character, at least right now.
I'm just waiting for Abe to get blown up. Spoiler alert. He eats, it's crazy, Will. He eats a bunch of bees. Like, he accidentally, like, he trips on the ground, and then a hive falls on his head.
They said beans.
Like,
I was hoping
that's actually even funnier. So
I thought eating him beans because she's actually a serial killer from 7.
His explosion is what triggers the fart, like that riffs through time.
Okay.
Megan's like, we need it for the commercial.
See, I thought it was more of a genuine, like, he sees the commercial that Peggy's working and was like, beans are good. Yeah, I guess so. No. Beans are really good. And he's just constantly eating beans throughout the series and just getting, in the way that, like, Peggy was gaining weight throughout season 1. You just see Abe getting progressively bigger and bigger, but, like, comically huge. Like, in the way that, like, Michael Key does in Wonka. He's just, like, constantly getting bigger and bigger.
And then he wakes up in a hospital bed, and Dawn's sitting there. And he's like, you get past this. It'll blow your mind how much this never happened.
Yeah, but it's just, like, you're just saying that he had, I'm presuming in this case, a bean baby? A beanie baby? A beanie baby! That's where they were created from!
I was gonna call it a bean-bortion.
Bean-bortion.
At a bean-chin.
Yeah,
okay, so I do want to finish out with talking about...
I love... God bless you, John. God bless you.
I'm
just driving this car however I can.
Yeah, I love as a host, John constantly has to kind of like hear our random babble and being like, speaking of beans having abortion.
Cinematographer on the episode won several awards.
Right. So I did want to bring up a few things. One interesting piece of trivia that I thought was cool was that they actually, and I'm curious what you guys think of this, Weiner almost ended the episode with like them going to the table. So there's that shot where they all kind of go to the table one by one. Jonathan Nicholas says like, yeah, it was kind of a discussion if like we would have Roger there at all, and ultimately decided no. And then the Shirley Temple comes up. They almost left it at that. And there was some debate over adding that last scene, the kind of coda with Sally talking to Glenn. And he has that line of like, they're going to think I'm your girlfriend. And she's just like, I'm not, pulling a little bit of a Betty. But she has that line where she's just like, she says dirty. And it's like a very, smash cut. Does it work for you though? Do you think the episode would have worked better if they had just like taken that out and ended it at the table? What do you guys think? I'm undecided, for full disclosure.
I honestly thought the end of the episode was going to be the table shot. And then we go back to Glenn and my internal monologue's like, oh no, not Glenn again. But, but I was willing to respect the show and watch it. I feel like the end took me aback. Like it doesn't, like in retrospect, I can see written out why that would be like a definitive kind of line. But the way that Sally delivers it didn't feel like a final like punctuation point. So I was kind of taken aback when the episode just like ends. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's the end of the episode. Okay.
This guy fucking hates child actors. Everything you brought up today, Will, is like, yeah, they fucking suck. I don't believe them. Poor line delivery. Which,
why did she have to?
Maybe fair, but they're like 6.
I never said anything about Karen Chipka being a bad actress or anything.
Just poor line delivery.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't say that the delivery was bad. It just didn't feel like a like declarative end thing. I just felt like it felt natural. Like, oh, it was dirty. It didn't feel like a like dirty. Like it didn't feel like an ending. Like, Done.
Do you agree, Mike?
I think it makes sense. I like that it's bookend, and I also like it's just like the theme of the episode, like of lost innocence, like lost to childhood. It's like Megan has that in her marriage. Don's having that in his career. Sally's having that as Sally. The grandma's having that with her ankles still being attached to her body.
I do like Sally gets away with it. You know, that's her first kind of brush with adulthood.
She tripped on a toy, bro.
She pulls a Dawn. She's just like, oh, they thought he was me and I was him. I wasn't hurting anybody.
Well, that's just classic Sally, you know, causing mayhem and chaos and elderly abusing and just blaming it on an infant or a baby or whatever. I don't even know.
Jean's toys.
Yeah, where is Jean?
You ever seen that movie Baby's Day Out?
Yeah. That just, they should have, I know it's not going to happen, but I would love if there was a full episode from Gene's perspective. Just him walking around New York City, just being a crazy little kook.
I do think that I mentioned this to Mike before we were recording. There's kind of a quality of this episode, like a little bit, I think, to like stress the lost innocence thing. Sometimes the characters and the dialogue is a little childish, the way they talk to each other, like just like little line deliveries, like the way that Julia Ormond delivers that line, like, I've been watching you all night. Like, it feels a little like there's a quality to it. Or like when Pete is explaining to Emil what his job is, there's almost something kind of like, I don't know, like sitcom 4-quadrant about it, where he's like, oh, that's what you meant. Like, is it just me? I feel like there are a couple of, like, there's a little bit of a cheesiness, like a little bit of a corniness in certain parts that's kind of making it feel like you can be in Sally's perspective, like from her perspective, this is how the characters talk. Or am I you guys are looking at me like I'm nuts.
Yeah, you're right, John. It is all you.
Are we about done?
I got like 7 more thoughts on farts.
Okay, I'll indulge that rather than whatever John's talking about.
The last thing I was going to bring up, sheesh, the critical reception. This is just to hurt Will's feelings. So this episode has gotten widespread critical acclaim. All the major critics I could find really like it and praise it as one of season 5's strongest episodes. Emily Vanderwerf from Emily St. James from AV Club gave it an A-. Glowing review. Alan Sepinwall of HitFlix described the Heinz pitch as like this glorious moment, best Don Draper pitch in ages. So like up until that point. Time Magazine, Will Ashton. Time Magazine, heard of it? They included the episode in their top episodes list, stating it was a season full of bravura episodes. But the one that sticks with me above all is a straightforward minor key episode about some of the things that make Mad Men great. Disappointment and regret as experienced by fabulously dressed people. I could go on, Will, but I think what Mike and I are trying to tell you is that you're a contrarian. You're a maverick. You're a little bit of a socialist. You got some ideas over there, and I'm interested in all.
Yeah, I said I liked the episode. I mean, yeah, it's not the same as the other ones, but maybe time will be kinder to it.
Who knows? All right, well, thanks so much for listening to Mad Men. We'll be back hopefully soon to talk about the next episode. Actually, I forget what the next episode is. I'm going to look it up. Oh, yeah, Lady Lazarus. That's going to be episode 8 of season 5. And it's also the 60th episode of the series overall.
Say it 3 times fast. Lady Lazarus, Lady Lazarus, Lady Lazarus.
You said it 3 times.
How many times did I say it fast?
You said you were going to say it 5 times.
Lady Lazarus, Lady Lazarus, Lady Lazarus, Lady Lazarus, Lady Lazarus.
You lost a little bit. It was good effort.
Harder than it looks.
I do appreciate the episodes based on a Shirley Temple song, and they even do the little Shirley Temple drink. That was a nice little nod. I appreciate that.
Yeah, nice symbolism there, too. So, Will, we should end this episode with some line delivery then. Will, what did you think of this episode of Mad Men?